Hey everybody, Andy from Tennis Euphoria, bringing you my review of the Wilson Blade 100 V8. So what is this frame all about? It's not particularly hyped, it's harder to get hold of via retailers. It seems to be available primarily at Wilson Direct or at Decathlon. At Wilson Direct it's particularly expensive. I guess a lot of customers, me included initially, were concerned, and I did some research. Is this a sort of cheaper version of the blade? An old iteration or something like the team versions? Happy to confirm that it absolutely isn't. In this frame you have all of the technology that you'd find in the 98 and the V8 lines. Parallel drilling, their 45 technology. We obviously have a braided graphite and basalt layup, which you've seen in blades for a while. No horrible countervail, so the feel's good. What I do like about the V8 and this is they have the direct connect carbon fiber handle that extends all the way through to the end cap. I like the feel that gives. It does feel connected. Wilson say that enhances torsional stability too. I'm not quite sure how that necessarily works, to be honest, but I do think that this is a pretty stable frame for its weight, so maybe it does. So where does this racket sit within the marketplace, comparing it to other rackets in the Wilson lineup? Thinking about their 100 square inches, then this is nothing like the Burn. The Burn's really stiff. This isn't anything like the Clash 100. The Clash 100 doesn't offer this level of control. It isn't like the Shift 99. Shift 99 I'd say is more powerful, more spin friendly. You don't get mammoth amounts of spin with this frame. Thinking about other manufacturers and competing lines, other 100 square inch 300 gram frames, it's not like the Onyx E-Zone 100. That would be more powerful off the bat, probably gives you a bit more access to spin. I suppose you could compare it to the Headspeed MP. Obviously they have similar specs. The speed, and I mean this positively, has that nice combination of feel, dwell time, pocketing, almost sort of old style racket feel, with then more modern power and spin, and that sweet spot at 100 square inches. I suppose there's elements of that within this frame, but the feel is different. I suppose what this frame is most like is the Blade 98, but with some subtle differences, or maybe arguably some enhancements. So when I talk about feel, what's the difference between this and the Speed MP? I suppose the blade feel is quite hard to describe, but when Wilson nail a blade with good feel like they have with this one, then I tend to describe it as having some sort of contradictory terms working well together. So it's plush, you get some dwell time, you get some nice pocketing, good feel and connection to the ball, but it also feels at the same time quite solid. And I'm not talking about stability or twist weight there. There's just a sort of quality, solid feel to it, whilst also feeling plush. I absolutely love drilling with this frame. I think it's fantastic at the net. I think it's great to get into patterns with in drilling and whatever you're doing, because it's really reliable and dependable. So comparing it to that Blade 98, here's a difference in the specs. Ultimately you've got a slightly thicker beam here. I think that will help with some of that stability, even though the weight's a bit lighter at 300 grams, and you obviously have that slightly bigger head size. So I've come to sort of realize, or like to describe it as a Blade 98 which is more accessible, easier to play with. That 100 square inch head size just gives you a slightly more generous sweet spot. It's a little bit more forgiving than the Blade 98. I think as a result it will be a bit more accessible to a bigger sort of pool of players. I do think that there'll be some Blade 98 players who would play better with this frame because it is a little bit easier to use, and I think the other thing that's quite noticeable is that the 100 is better on defense. I think it's a bit quicker through the air. Again, that sweet spot makes quite a difference when you're digging balls out, and I suppose from a sort of playability perspective, terrible point here, by the way. Awful serve, awful second shot. But also from a playability perspective, you do get a little bit more free power and just a little bit more launch angle from this 100 compared to the 98. The most comparable frame that I can think of, if anybody's hit with it, is the new Prince Textreme Tour ATS 310. I think that this plays quite close to that, obviously with a different string pattern. The 310 is obviously a bit heavier in static weight, and you get a touch more plow on flat shots, so arguably some players might want to customize this, but I've very much landed on just a leather grip. Discussed strings, I was really enjoying alu power in the mains, maybe coupled with element, and I think that setup's working really well, albeit a little bit higher than I would usually string at. So I've been going to 53 and 54 pounds even at one point, that worked really well. So it's it's an awesome review for me, to be honest. I tend to keep rackets that I really enjoy. This probably tells its own story in that I've got 3 of these. I've got 3 of the Prince ATS 310s. I've got 3 head speed MPs. I've kept 1 shift, and I've kept some Wilson Ultra Pros. Everything else has kind of gone. For my game, which isn't going to be right for everybody's, of course, this would be right up there. Trying to give a very quick non-scientific comparison, I guess, to the 98. Same player, same string tension, same day, going pretty much from cold. I didn't have long to do this, apologies, but the 98, as you can see, all of that nice feel. I do love this frame, but when you switch over to just hitting a few balls with the 100, which I will do in a second on the clip here, it is noticeable that you just get that little bit more lift, a little bit more insurance over the net, a little bit more easy depth. I actually find that I think it's a bit more comfortable, and I think that's probably because the sweet spot's a little bit more enhanced. Here's that 100, see, it's just a little bit more lift, little bit more free depth, and just that little bit more power. Interestingly, on serve, I think the slight difference in specs cancel each other out a little bit. So the 305 98 is obviously a little bit heavier, and when it comes to comparing serves, I actually think they're quite comparable on serve. You've got the slightly thicker beam with the 100 and that bigger head size, which should lead to a bit more power, but I guess there's always that tipping point around sort of maneuverability through the air when it comes to power, particularly on serve, and I think that they do cancel each other out. Again, pretty cold, hadn't hit any warm-up serves here, but tried to hit first serve wide, first serve body ish, second serve backhand, and then a slice second serve down the tee. That was with the 100. Then looked to do the same with the 98, and it's very, very hard to tell the difference, to be honest. I think they both serve well, both with good accuracy, possibly get just a touch more MPH on the 98 on a flat serve, but they're very, very comparable in terms of pace on serve and pinpoint accuracy. So real massive thumbs up from me. Hope that was useful. Definitely check it out and demo it. It's a hidden gem for sure. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and please do give the video a like if it was helpful, as that will make me feel good. See you in the next one.